Hi, I want to dedicate this first video to my grandmother, mi abuelita Chuy. And the reason why I am deciding to have speak about her in this first episode is because she was born December 25th, 1930. And I want for you guys to know a little bit about her because in me sharing this story, it's also going to allow you to have a better understanding on why I am the way I am today. She was a major part of my growth, right? And it all began whenever I was born. My grandmother at that time lived in Mexico. So whenever I was born, I was a preemie. She came down to Dallas and met me. And when she met me for the first time, she decided that she was no longer going to go back to Mexico and she was going to relocate to Dallas and help out my mom with her new child. So that's when my story kind of went a different route. I feel that if my grandmother would have simply gone back to Mexico, then my mom would have probably been forced to be a stay at home mom. But now having her mother in Dallas opened up this possibility of her going out and have a job. So my childhood memories are it was always grandma, grandpa, my sisters, and myself. And I'm talking about every day after school, we would be greeted with by grandma and grandpa, and of course, all the Mexican food that you can think about. And it's funny because she was such a great cook that specifically myself, I would give her suggestions on what she should cook for us. So when we would come home from school and even during the weekends, she would always have the specific foods that we requested. And the memories that I have about grandma and grandpa are beautiful. We would be outside playing. We would be in the house with them. My grandma would tell us bedtime stories before we would go to bed. And there was a lot of moments where grandpa would be outside working on something. He was a very handy person. And grandma would be inside cooking. And a lot of the times when grandma would go to Mexico and visit her family, she would always take me since I was the oldest. Um, I would always just tag along, and it opened up this new world for me because she would talk to me. Both grandma and grandpa, my parents, would talk to me about Mexico, but in reality, I didn't know what it was, and my imagination would go everywhere. And whenever I would go to her town, which is in North Mexico, it was a beautiful experience because I don't believe my sisters got to experience as much as I did, but it gave me that perspective of what life was in Mexico and what life was here in the States. And it helped me a lot in communicating in Spanish. And I recall several times she would send me to the corner store and she would be, make sure you speak Spanish. And it didn't click, but I recall going to the grocery stores and there was a lot of other children that were from the States and they were there. And I was like, okay, it kind of didn't seem right for to have an English conversation at that specific moment with individuals around you that didn't speak the language. So I was like, okay, I think this is what she's talking about. She wants for me to be kind of respectful and make sure that they understand that I can speak Spanish as well. And so I have real beautiful memories of the trips that I took to Mexico with her. Whenever I was close to 9 years old, we began to see a difference in her health. It was definitely deteriorating. And in that specific moment, you, as a young child, you begin to experience fear and you begin to experience the possibility that it could be something so bad that your grandmother could die. So those are the first moments that I recall having those type of emotions. Whenever my grandma was getting sick, she decided that she would go to Mexico and kind of go to a doctor down there. They spoke the language. She wanted to know what was going on, but nothing happened. It didn't seem like they were doing anything for her. So I recall one time, my mom went to Mexico, picked up my grandma, brought her back to the States, and then she took her to the doctor, and they determined and they diagnosed her with the Lou Gehrig's disease, which is the amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And that disease was very difficult to witness happening to your grandmother. And that specific moment, you really don't know what's going on. You understand that something's not right, and something is very wrong. You can see it in the expression of the adults around you, but most importantly, you see the fear in your grandmother's eyes. And that was very difficult to digest. So from the moment that I'm 9 years old all the way to I was 19 years old, that's when she passed away. It was a slow deterioration of herself. She needed a G tube to be fed. So it was a team effort. It was my mom, dad, grandpa, sisters, and myself. We all learned how to take care of that G tube, distribute the medicine, distribute the nutritional drinks that we had to put down that tube, and we had to bathe her. And she was basically bedridden. She had a bedside commode, and all this in these specific years where my sisters and I were children, we were teenagers, we did get to experience life with friends, but I can say that it wasn't to the degrees of what other people to the degree of what other people go out and venture. We were definitely at the house taking care of her, and she was very Catholic. So we would pray, and at some point I felt and I asked God for her cure, and I felt that if I was a good person, if I was a good boy, that everything would be solved. And it was very disappointing at the end, and for many years I had a lot of resentment towards God. I just couldn't understand how someone so good could be going through that. I want to let you know that now I don't have those thoughts. God is very important in my life, and I understand that things happen for a reason, and sometimes we don't understand what's going on. So even in those specific moments where she was going through all that, let me give you an example. There was moments where my bedroom was next to hers. So in the middle of the night, I would hear knocks. Imagine at 2, 3 in the morning getting up, and I would go, and she was like, I need to use the restroom. So imagine a 14, 15-year-old boy, teenager, picking her up, placing her on the bedside commode, stepping away for a bit to give her some privacy, and then cleaning her, putting her back in bed, and cleaning everything. I can only imagine how difficult it was for her to come to terms that she had to be in that situation, and most importantly, to have her grandchildren care for her in that way. That's when everything began for me, as far as being very aware on how I responded to things. I feel that I wanted to be so careful in the way that I responded to her, for her not to feel bad or feel like she was a burden to us. And in a specific moment, I heard her speak with her sister, and her sister was like, how do you feel? And my grandmother's response was, I feel extremely happy. I'm here every day, and I get to see Junior, and I get to see the girls, and that brings me a lot of happiness. And that's where I understood that happiness is a choice. Yes, sometimes we don't agree with what things are happening around us, or we may not feel the best, but it's ultimately up to us on how we make that day progress. And I definitely believe that happiness is a choice. As as her health began to deteriorate, and the when she did pass, imagine myself at 19 years old, along with my best friend Monica. Everything was already set as far as the funeral home and the the funeral home and the cemetery, but it was Monica and I trying to handle everything because my mom and sisters, they were destroyed with what had happened, and my grandpa as well. So I had to step up to the occasion and take matters into my own hands and try to see what I could solve. Even though all that was so extremely sad, I have decided that I only take the good out of all that and all the good lessons that I have accumulated from that experience. Um, I wish that in that specific moment after her passing, I wish that I would have thought of, seeking professional help, because I feel that a lot of things I didn't digest right. I feel that I carry and I still carry a lot of trauma that in that specific moment I had no idea what it even was. But now, as a 39-year-old man, I can tell you that for the past maybe 5, 6 months, I've been with a therapist, and she has helped me so much, and I have realized many things in many areas that I need to work on. And going forward, what I want from this experience is to be a better version of myself and to take care of myself, put me first. For so long, I was always always asking, what do you need? How can I help you? How may I be of service? Never did I take the time to ask myself, what do you need? What do you want? What makes you happy? And so that's definitely something that I want to do here going forward. And I take with me that beautiful smile that my grandma always gave me. I take with me the beautiful words, the beautiful memories, because those memories and those words I still carry with me. And I felt at some point that once she would be gone, I would feel a big void. And on the contrary, I feel her more present than ever. And every single time that I feel down, every time that I feel sad, I always pray with them, with my grandma and my grandpa. And I, in the future, will speak more about my grandpa in a future video, because he was also such an important person in my life. So today, her birthday's coming up. So I want to wish her a happy birthday, of course. But I also want to say thank you so much, because individuals that are raised by their grandparents, we're a different breed. And some of us were so blessed to have that in our lives. I know I was, and I feel extremely blessed, extremely happy to know that my grandma and my grandpa are my guardian angels, and they are always with me. And that experience, those 10 years of seeing her suffer, I only take the good out of all that. And I hope that in this moment, if you are going to get together for Christmas with your family members, make sure you hug them. Make sure you let them know how much you care about them. And for the individuals that are no longer with us, pray with them. Talk to them. I can guarantee that you'll feel their presence as well. Well, this was the first video. I have so many more to come. If you have any suggestions, any ideas, or anything you want to say, please leave a comment, okay? Talk to you soon.